Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Now, in recent weeks or days, if you like, we have seen an increase in cases of police using excess force while dispensing their services, contrary to the rule of law. That's what we want to dive into. Why exactly are we witnessing this? What are the reforms that are needed in this particular service, that is the National Police Service? And most importantly, the call for accountability and transparency. What is the Kenya that we want? And that's what we want to dive in with my guest. Joining me to my immediate right, we have Patrick Kungu, Secretary LSK, that is the Law Society of Kenya, Thika Chapter. Good evening, Karibu Sana.
Thank you, Ashley.
Anytime. Next to him, we have Njanja Maina, who is equally an advocate of the High Court. Karibu Sana.
Asante Sana, Ashley. Thanks for
Next to her, we have Geoffrey Mboya, Gen Z human rights defender. The Gen Z had to be there, right?
Yeah, Asante.
Okay. And finally, last but not least, we have Elijah Kandiero Tok, who's a senior human rights officer and advocate, equally from KNCHR, which is the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights. So perhaps maybe we start with the Gen Z, yeah? Because you're the ones who are controlling everything as it seems right now. So perhaps from where you sit, do you think the government and security agencies or chiefs understand their constitutional duty of protecting the life of citizens?
First and foremost, just to start off, I think as a country, we've had a lot of police reforms. We've had numerous works done by LSK and other human rights governing bodies to ensure that police actually undergoes reforms that mandate them to serve the people of Kenya, and also to ensure that there is responsibility, there is accountability. But what we are actually seeing is the very people who saw an oath to protect Kenyans are the very people disrespecting the rule of law. So I think it's a critical time where the whole governance around policing in this country has failed. Not just because the citizens are failing to obey the laws, but the people behind these institutions have disrespected our constitution, and they're the people that need to be held accountable.
Okay. Elijah, coming to you, and since you wear different hats, you're an advocate and you're equally a human rights defender. I mean, if you look at just the past 2 weeks or so, we have seen a number of cases from Albert Ojwang, sadly. We saw another case in Homa Bay. We equally saw just yesterday, there was another shootout. Let's not even forget the issue of Boniface Kariuki, what was witnessed during the protest. I understand your mic has a challenge, so we'll be coming to you. But perhaps, Njanja, you can, jump into this particular conversation.
Okay.
I mean, how do these incidents underscore the urgency of police reforms in the country?
At the moment, I don't even think we have an urgency. It's a requirement.
Okay.
It's a demand. It has stopped being a clarion call anymore, and it is what we need. It's like the air we breathe right now, because as we called this, as it was baptized last year, it was baptized the Gen Z movement, the Gen Z Maandamano, the Gen Z revolution. Why was this? Because protests were called out, and it was a clarion call for peaceful protests, because we believed that the leaders we elected in 2002, as they promised us, would give us, a silver plate. Whenever we wanted to air our views, their offices would be open. They told us their numbers are out there in public for us to reach them. So when the protests began, when the revolution, let me call it, began, it began in such a peaceful manner that people just assembled and said, we are making our way to parliament. And we just want to, what we want to do, we want to air our views. What were they met by? They were met by rebellion. What were they met by? They were met by tear gas canisters and water cannons that they've never even seen being used, even pre-Kibaki times. That was the Moi era. Those are things they had never experienced because they had not even seen it on TV, post those times. So right now, it's more of what we are demanding, what we are saying is a necessity in this country. It is because, as they go by, their working policy is utumishi kwa wote. service to all. It is not to a select few. Even the leaders who have been elected are elected by us, for us, with us.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. It's no longer a demand.
It's
You know,
no longer a
necessity.
clarion call.
Okay.
It's a demand.
Okay.
It is a demand.
Coming to you,
Yes.
I mean, Patrick, the Law Society of Kenya has called for a complete overhaul of the country's institutions, citing failure to protect citizens and uphold the rule of law. I mean, what steps do we take to achieve this?
I think, thank you, Ashley. I think the first thing that we should do is to continue calling for command responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I think when you talk to a lot of the policemen, because we do live with these people,
yeah.
we live with them, they are our brothers and sisters. When you talk to these people, they are going to they tell you that they just follow orders. So that tells you that at the end of the day, this policewoman or policeman has someone telling him or her what he or she is supposed to do whenever she goes out on an assignment. So for me, I think if we as a people, as a country, can call for command responsibility and hold the people who are at the top responsible for the actions of the juniors, I think we'll be heading towards the right way. Because when I witnessed the whole scenario of the gentleman who was shot during the maandamanos, you could see that these two police officers actually confronted him, then left him, then came back. And then you get to wonder what went on at that point. Because they had seen the guy is not a threat in any way. But they went and talked to each other and then they came back. As if to say, hey, we need to do something. Right? The first instinct was to achana na yeye. Let's leave this guy alone, he's not a threat. Let's go on and continue with our patrols. But they went and talked to each other and then they came back and then they shot him. As if to say that, hey, there's something that we were supposed to do and we have not done it, so let's do it right now. So for me, I think command responsibility is what we should be calling for. And we should hold the IG and the top police officers to account. Okay. Because I think that's the only way we'll be able to bring the police force into order.
All right, Elijah, coming to you, how possible is what Patrick is saying, considering, as we've said, these people are being given orders? Meaning, for you to do such an inhumane act, you know someone is protecting you. Even as we talk about reforms, let's talk about these powers that be. How do we remove that power from them?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. First and foremost, I just want to extend condolences to the families of those who've lost their loved ones, resulting from the fracas that happened when the protests were ongoing, and also to the numerous individuals who are nursing injuries in various hospitals. We want to tell them from the perspective of the National Commission on Human Rights that we see you, we hear you, and we are here to fight for your rights, and we'll ensure that there's some form of accountability. And also for those who've lost their properties in this fracas, we want to tell you that you have a right to compensation from the state, which has an obligation to ensure that even when you are carrying out your businesses, that no harm should come to your businesses. Now, to the question of the police and whether there are either orders from above or the issue around command responsibility, I'd like to start from the constitutional provisions, specifically Article 244, which gives the standard for police officers that they are to strive to the highest level of professionalism, discipline, transparency, and accountability. The Chief Justice Emeritus led a task force that called for reforms under the National Police Service. And some of the key issues that emerged from that task force was the need for depoliticization of the police, the need for training, the strengthening of IPOA, and other reforms that would look into the welfare. And that was extended to other disciplined forces, such as the prison service, the Kenya Wildlife Service, and even the National Youth Service. And so with this, it remains an unresolved issue that today we have officers who are not abiding by the law, not abiding by their own service standing orders, not abiding by their even procedures of how to police or how to manage protests. There are clear guidelines within their service standing orders. They know very well, many organizations, including ourselves and other agencies, have participated in training these police officers on how to manage protests. And we've done it from different cadres, from the top even to the officers who are at the lower level. But increasingly, we are still yet to see the impact of these trainings taking effect, where we are seeing more professionalism from our officers. I'd like to, of course, give regard to point out that there are those officers who are abiding by the law, but we are zeroing in on these few individuals who are consistently damaging the reputation of the service, and they are breaching the law, using excessive force and firearms, and attacking citizens who are either peaceful, unarmed, or going about their business. And so when we see this, and then we see also other revelations of a group of youth who are coming, labeled as goons, armed, working in a pattern that is coordinated, that is seemingly in showing that there is some form of coordination, there is some form of either control from somewhere. So it points out to an element of politicization, in the sense that when you see political leaders issuing statements that either a city will not be used for either to have demonstrations, and calling out for the protection of, say, businesses, then you see the very people who are claiming to protect businesses turning out to loot, turning out to maim others. And we've recorded 22 cases from Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, of people who are seriously injured from just the protests that were conducted this week.
What are the numbers looking like? Sorry to cut you short.
Yes, currently we are dealing with 22 cases that we are working together with other agencies to ensure that there's some form of reparations for these persons. You are not supposed to be harmed or to be attacked by officers when you're exercising your constitutional right. Of course, Article 37 is clear to everyone who can be able to read the Constitution. If you are peaceful, you can assemble, you can picket, you can present petitions to any political office or any person where you have a grievance against. And so the state has an obligation to facilitate and not to brutalize individuals who are peaceful. We are seeing persons who, because of just writing short messages either on social media, finding themselves in police custody. So we are seeing again the misuse of some of the legal provisions for purposes of either settling scores or because I didn't like how you expressed.
Okay.
So you see as a system where there is need for an overhaul, and specifically we need to start looking at how are we going to implement the provisions of the numerous reports that have recommended several reforms to be undertaken, particularly within our disciplined agencies.
Okay. Geoffrey, coming to you, I mean, he's mentioned the fact that the state has an obligation, but this is the same state that does not walk the talk. It cannot be business as usual, can it?
What do you do? How do you deal with the police system that itself fails to, uphold the rule of law? Just the past, with the current case of Albert Ojwang, we've seen both the DC High and the IG, giving a lie under oath that this is the evidence that they gathered from different departments within the police, within the National Police Service. And they presented this before the Parliament, before the Senate, and it's a serious problem. When the head is rotten, the entire body cannot function properly. And so it calls on an entire overhaul of the system.
Yeah.
That we need to have people with the highest principles to hold these offices. Because in this country, we cannot have leaders who only exercise law when it's not against them. If I promise, if it was a civilian like you and I who was implicated with the case of Albert Ojwang, and you are acting as the IG in this, and you're acting, and you at the moment you cannot walk scot-free.
Yeah.
You could have been arrested and arraigned in our court. But because they hold certain privileges, certain capacities, they feel that they can exercise, they can exercise these powers without being held accountable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Njanja, coming to you, I mean, compensation, he's talked about it.
Yes.
We have a right to compensation. Let's go back to last year, around this time. Businesses were destroyed, lives were lost. We've had the government talk about how, yes, there's going to be compensation. Nothing so far. I mean, talk to us about that process of a citizen acquiring compensation from the government.
Okay, I think, like we said,
Yeah.
first we have to begin, like even my colleague here, Geoffrey, has said, I think we have to begin from a point of accountability and responsibility. And when it is clear that this person has been held to account, it's very clear that this person has been held responsible. Whether, I mean, they decide to throw each other under the bus, whatever they decide to do, it doesn't matter. Yes, because once we have that person who has been, of course it is a problem, like morally, in our conscience, it does not serve us well, because you would not want to see another mother's child being held liable for what they have not done.
Yeah.
But if that's what they choose to do, then we will play that game with them, because clearly that is what it is, a game. And when we come to, okay, fine, the criminal system has done its part, the criminal justice system has done its part, and this person has been convicted to however many years or whatever sentence it is, then we say, you know what, now we are coming in and we are going to get civil relief for these people, and we are going to ask for compensation. We're going to demand it from the head. We're going to ask for it from the IG. We're going to ask it from the DCI, or whoever is implicated in whatever manner of, atrocity it is. So what we are saying at this point is, even the laws we have right now, unfortunately, do not fully stand for us to say that we can get compensation when these atrocities are committed, especially with the backlog of justice we are seeing. Let's go back to, like you're saying, last year, June 20th, when Rex Masai unfortunately was shot, and he was the first victim of the revolution. I don't like to call it Mandamano. He was the first victim of that. Where are we today? Today we are only at an inquest stage.
Yeah.
We've not gotten to a point, and even we had a court sitting today to the same. We have not gotten to a point where anybody is saying, you know what, this and this happened. Actually, what I saw is a former CCIO from Central Police Station, Ms. Dorcas Mugambi, then came out and said, you know what, that no one, she actually wanted to remove herself from the equation by saying that no one even had live ammunition, live bullets or anything. So it could have been a civilian who came out with a gun who was either licensed or unlicensed and shot this man. And it was very clear, even from footage that was taken at the scene. What happened? So why do we have to wait 1 year to go into an inquest for this person for the magistrate or whoever it is to say that, okay, fine, you know what, we are holding this person responsible. Then you go to a murder trial. Look at Baby Pendo. How long has it taken? 8 years for these people to go to trial. Are we going to wait another 8 years for Rex's family, who we don't even know whether they will be there at that time, whether they will want to proceed, whether the witnesses will want to take stand at that point?
Yeah.
We do not know what will be happening in the future. We do not know about tomorrow, let alone 2-3 years from now. So this compensation, it really eats at us. It eats at us because even the people who are sitting in parliament, the people who we are trying to approach are not approachable.
Yeah.
You know, they do not want to listen to what people are asking them to do and sit down and tell us, no, this is not possible, or yes, it is possible to this and this limit, and this is where you also have to cave in.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll talk more about last year's protest, even as we approach the anniversary next week.
Yes.
But coming to you, Patrick, I mean, if we look at Albert's case, IPOA is under intense scrutiny. And majority of the people, majority of Kenyans, believe that they will not deliver the justice that is needed because of the issues that we've seen. I mean, you remember that the initial press briefing that IPOA was there with. So how are you holding to account the people that you're standing with at a press conference? So one who is equally accused of being involved in that particular murder. Should we have faith in them?
Well, I think IPOA definitely started this thing on the wrong foot. Huh? Because, you know, we say in law that justice should not only be done, but it should also be seen to be done. Now, the fact that we saw the chairman of IPOA in the press briefing with the IG and the deputy IG, who is a suspect in this particular case, that of course does not give Kenyans a lot of hope in IPOA. So sometimes small things like those, these are things that you're supposed to look into. You don't just wake up and do something just because you want to do or you've been told to do it. You need first of all to sit back and try and reason out how this will be seen by the public. So for me, I think they started on the wrong footing. They have been under a lot of pressure, and I saw that they summoned the deputy IG.
Yeah, today.
So we are waiting for them to tell us after that, what will they do? Will they press charges against this person? Because as we speak, the deputy IG is being seen as someone who's larger than life, someone who's untouchable. And as I said, it's this, that perception that we need to deal with. Because the moment the ordinary policewoman or policeman sees his or her superior as someone who's not touchable or someone who's the law is not applicable to him or her, then if they are told to do something that is illegal, they'll follow that order. But the moment they see that this person can be held accountable, just like any other citizen, even when that particular senior officer comes to give such an order, that junior officer will think twice. So, because now they'll be in a situation where they're asking themselves, we've seen a situation where my superiors have been held accountable. What will happen to me? So that's why I'm saying, for me, what we should be really going for is command responsibility. And I thank our court, because I remember last year in December, there was a ruling, I think, by Justice Aburili, where the former IG, Kome, was held personally liable for the atrocities that were committed against the members of KMPDU when they were holding their mandamanos. So if we can have more judges that are coming out bravely and holding these people accountable, I think we'll be heading towards the right direction.
All right. I think that's a really good place to take a short break. But when we come back, of course, we've had that the DIG, that is Lagat, was summoned today by IPOA, and he recorded a statement that took around 3 hours. But initially, he had stepped aside. Do we have anything like that in the law? What does Section 17 of the Police Service Act say? We'll be seeking those answers from our legal minds shortly after the break. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. My guests are still with me. Allow me to reintroduce them. Patrick Kungu, Secretary, LSK, Thika Chapter, immediately next to me. Next to him, we have Njanja Maina, who is an advocate of the High Court. And next to her, we have Geoffrey Mboya, Gen Z human rights defender, and Elijah Kandie, who is a senior human rights officer at KNCHR and equally an advocate. Coming to you, Elijah, I mean, we did start the issue of the DIG, Eliud Lagat, who was summoned today and made his statement. But let's take back. Before he stepped aside, and he did because of pressure from, citizens of Kenya, this word, step aside, because at first we were confusing it with stepping down and, resigning, but that's not the case. Talk to us about Section 17, 1995A of the Police Service Act in terms of the removal process of a police officer accused of misconduct. Is there such a thing as step aside? Because today, Rarieda Member of Parliament, Otiende Amolo, said it's just a charade.
Thank you for that concern. I think I'll go straight to the provision.
Okay.
where there are grounds for the removal of the Deputy Inspector General. I should point out that he is actually the commander of the Kenya Police Service. So then the other DIG would be for the administration police. And so actually in terms of ranking is among the senior most. So when he violates Chapter 6 of the Constitution or provisions, when he has either gross misconduct or when he is declared bankrupt, then there would be procedures for now removal. This would involve now the president. When you look at just the provisions of Section 16 is when there is absence, then the president, based on the advice from the National Police Service Commission, then he ought to appoint a deputy to take up. But for this specific case, when we saw the letter, he sort of appointed his deputy already to take over. And to us, we questioned, I mean, in terms of ranking, it should be the IG who is the overall, who his supervisor to appoint, and not him taking up that position and appointing. But that can also be interrogated. I'd leave that to the National Police Service Commission because they are practically playing the sort of the HR function in terms of provisions of procedures of disciplining any officer who is gone against or breached the law. But we await the outcome of this process, and if he is adversely mentioned or is found culpable, then these procedures, we should see them come out playing very strongly. Okay. And I am happy that even today, by that step of him voluntarily going and obeying the summons of the Civil Oversight Authority, that's the IPOA, it sends a clear message that the dispensation that we are in now is no longer the pre-2010 Constitution dispensation where police officers would act with wanton abandon or with reckless acts. And so it sends a message to all officers who are under him, under his command, that indeed when you are adversely mentioned because of an incident, then it is important for certain actions to be undertaken for purposes of maintaining accountability and also transparency. That let it be seen to all Kenyans that for any officer, in fact, even that goes for the two officers who participated in that their actions led to the shooting of a hawker in the last incident that we saw that is ongoing, that today they were arraigned in court. That also sends a message that you will be not only individually responsible for your actions, but also you'll be responsible for the officers who are beneath you for failing to take necessary action or for giving out orders to act in a certain way that goes against the law. Okay. And so those are some of the provisions that I find are very critical and important towards ensuring that there's accountability.
Okay. Boy, I'm coming to you shortly, but just to double up on that, I mean, we saw those two police officers get arraigned today instead of yesterday, which further raised more questions. When they say they're holding them for 15 more days for further investigations. I mean, I'm not privy to how court processes are. Maybe you can shed some light. What more investigations? We have video clips, we have pictures, everything is there. The public already knows what happened. So when you say for further investigations, yet there is evidence in such a case, I mean, just elaborate to us. Oh, teach us your ways.
Actually, when you say teach us your ways, you make us sound like demigods. We love to hear, by the way, but thank you. So, I think I would not fault them for asking for time for investigation. But all we are asking for, even in this investigative process, because it is part of the law, it forms part of the law. And you see, until you are found guilty, of course you're presumed innocent. Yes? So right now, even if they have taken the stand, they have not pleaded to any charges because no charges have been prepared against them because the investigations are not complete. And we can say, yes, fine, 48 hours is not sufficient. Let's just, let's be reasonable as well. Let's be proportionate in these demands that we are making.
Okay.
Fine, it's not enough for them to investigate the magnitude of this offense. That's okay. But at the same time, there are these people who are saying, just like you have presented, that there's enough evidence from the public domain. There were people on ground. There was media on ground. There's video footage. There's everything that we need, to bring forth and say this is the evidence that we have. But you see, for it to withstand a charge, the DPP also will be held accountable.
Okay.
If he charges this person and he has not charged them according to the standing orders that they are also accountable to. So all we are asking for at this point is, because you're saying, there is so much evidence out there already. We cannot justify it or say, yes, fine, it is clear. But we do not see the need for 15 days, honestly. Because if you ask me, if they're working around the clock and they actually see the necessity for this, especially at the point we are in, this is June. This is what is going on in June. They should even say within 7 days, you know what, we are done with this. We are working round the clock just to make sure that, the public has restored faith in the police service. Okay. And that would actually, I think it would also calm tensions because people would see others working.
All right, coming to you, Geoffrey. I mean, police have assured that it's Wednesday or Tuesday? They're very ready for Tuesday or Wednesday. Oh, it's both.
Wednesday.
Okay, on Wednesday, that they will provide security for everyone. But then, looking at what happened last Tuesday and last week, the use of goons who looked like they were completely in cahoots with these police officers. As a Kenyan, as a youth, do you trust that you'll be safe?
I wouldn't really trust any statement that is being issued by the National Police Service. And that in itself, it's really based on the past experiences that peaceful youth protesters have faced in holding and organizing a public demonstration in the city. Because if you look at the genesis of these new waves of protests that have really garnered a lot of traction across the country, when it started on Monday last week, coming all the way to when we've seen serious incidents on Thursday, and then coming all the way to Monday, all the protests, all the protesters, they were very peaceful.
Yeah.
But then you see this culture of hired guns. The last protest that I attended, I saw firsthand how these hired guns were marching together with the police officers. That itself signaled to me that they are working together against peaceful demonstrators. And so until we see that, that faith being restored in national police services, we won't trust what is being shared. But in good faith, what I'm asking as a Gen Z and as a citizen of this country is that young people should continue organizing the protests peacefully and should exercise good public conduct while out there, that they ensure they're able to call out and to deal properly with these hired guns, because we cannot allow hired guns to disrupt what is otherwise a peaceful march, a march to honor the folks that we lost last year. I'm pretty sure next week, when we're going to have the nationwide protests or march for these families, we're going to be joined by mothers, our sisters, the fathers, especially those who lost their loved ones. And so we expect that the police will provide enough security, but that still
Is not guaranteed.
Is not guaranteed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Patrick, coming to you. If you've been following the conversation online on X and on different social media platforms, it's gotten to a place where young Kenyans are saying, you know what, it seems that we're on our own. So we're going to fight. Even we saw this happen actually on Tuesday. But then the fact that citizens are taking things into their own hands, the implications, because these are young Kenyans that we are seeing, you know, having to defend themselves against goons, police officers. What is the wider implication of this?
Well, the wider implication is that we risk sliding into anarchy as a country. And because at the end of the day, the government and the police have a higher duty of care. Now, the moment we see the police working in cahoots with organized criminals, then that pushes the demonstrators, the youths of this country, to a corner.
Yeah.
And what do you expect them to do? They'll retaliate, they'll fight back. We saw the images, those goons were actually very well armed with
batons.
With batons.
Yeah.
Now, what do you expect the young people of this nation to do? They are going to fight back. So for me, I think even that idea of trying to use goons to back up the police, I don't know where that idea came from. And the person who came up with that idea should actually be chased out of this country. Because what are you showing the world at the end of the day? What are you showing the world? What picture of Nairobi and Kenya are you portraying out there?
Yeah.
You are showing the world that this is a lawless city, and we are trying to be, you know, the heart of Africa and everything. So for me, I think the young people of this nation have been pushed to a corner, and this government should be very, very careful with how it deals with that. Okay. Because we've seen revolutions in other countries, in Romania, and we saw how those revolutions ended up. So for me, and I think they might have started to rethink how they are dealing with us, because the fact that the police came and said that, okay, on 25th, you can come and demonstrate and you're going to do 1, 2, 3. That's a change from the hard stance that they've been having in the, you know, in the past.
Yeah.
So we are waiting to see whether they really mean what they are saying. So for me, I think they should be very, very careful. And this is not something that they should play with. How you deal with an angry population is very, you know, you should be very, very careful, because it can spiral into something that you will not be able to control. So coming out and with so much bravado, like I saw the governor of Nairobi saying that mutanipata kwa street, but we never saw him. He sent the goons instead. So such kind of talk, you know, only infuriates.
Allegedly sent the goods.
Well, allegedly. Allegedly. But we saw the goons out there saying, Sakaja, tumelinda jiji, tumefanya nini. And also we've seen also clips of those young people in their hoods, you know, talking and saying, you know, we were there because we wanted to protect this, we were ordered by, you know, we've seen all those clips.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that the leaders of this country should be very careful. If they really mean well for this country, let them listen to what these young people are saying and try to see how they are going to work around that and try and accommodate whatever we are saying.
Okay.
So this whole thing of bravado and hard stance na kujipiga kifua, it won't help anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Coming to you, Elijah. We have had this from governments, not just the Kenyan government, but equally Tanzania. From where you see it, are civil society groups being used to create unrest and perhaps undermine regimes, as these, you know, presidents and the governments and states claim?
In our perspective, from a human rights perspective, and specifically from a national human rights institution, I would say not at all. The constitutional guarantees are very specific that citizens are supposed to exercise this right. And the role of the state, actually Kenya being a member of the ICCPR, that is the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, in 2020, General Comments 37 was set out to facilitate guidelines in relation to how protests are to be conducted. And so states were set out to facilitate demonstrations.
Yeah.
And also, they should look at demonstrations from a presumption that they are going to be peaceful. Save for where there is now disruption and there is lawlessness, that is when they ought to intervene. And also the other thing is that when states restrict demonstrations, they ought to do so bearing in as a last resort, and also when there are specific conditions that might necessitate. One is, of course, when there is violence, concerns of public health, concerns of public moral, concerns of breach of the rights of other individuals. Those are the conditions that have been set out, and it is accepted globally. So the idea to say that civil society organizations might be perceived as either wanting to either revolutionize or disrupt states are untrue, because I can tell you for a fact that many civil society organizations are working closely to implement state responsibilities or state obligations, specifically in terms of promotion and protection of rights of Kenyans. There are many service providers. There are many civil society organizations that are promoting issues to deal with health, issues to deal with children. So, and they are assisting the state to advance its services to Kenyans. And so when they call for issues around accountability, it isn't for purposes of either to bring down a regime or anything, but the intent is that so that there is more promotion and protection of human rights, and also the upholding of the rule of law. I am yet to see deliberate moves where you see an entity has been earmarked and set out to say that they seemingly are operating in different ways. But in the converse of that has been true. In the past, especially around the general elections, we've seen state agencies raining down on civil society organizations in the pretext of either supporting terrorist activities or not meeting some of the provisions of under the National Coordination Board, especially on accountability or meeting or filing its taxes. And they would seek to clamp them down, and we've called out the state and said no. They should be due process in terms of either holding an entity to account. But this, again, you would see it being as a political response, especially targeting those entities that have called for accountability or have sued particular individuals of interest within the state. Okay. And so of importance is that the civic space or the civil society space is very critical in terms of a community mobilization, in terms of even empowering communities to uphold the rule of law and even champion rights for every Kenyan. So to me, I would say that the statement from Her Excellency Suluhu, I would disagree in total, and to say that even the advocates who had gone there were going to watch brief. And watching brief, we are members of an East African Law Society. So I would ask, why did Chief Emeritus Maraga was not taken out, was not either deported, yet they decided to deport the other Chief Justice, Willy Mutunga, and other human rights activists? It goes to show you that there is either doublespeak or ways in which they seek to apply some of these provisions selectively, as opposed to application of the rule of law to all, which is an entitlement to every person, especially we us being members of the East African community.
Okay. Geoffrey, coming to you, I mean, let's talk about this revolution, as Njanja calls it. It is just the beginning. The youth keep on saying they're tribeless, which is a good thing, yeah? Because that's what we want to look forward to as a country. But then let's keep in mind that when push comes to shove, Kenyans always go back to their political, tribal backyard, yeah? Let's not forget also that we're at a time where we're seeing different names being fronted. As a youth, as a Gen Z, from where you sit, do you think we should either support the same old names that we are seeing, you know, being floated around, or perhaps it's high time the country is led by a youth?
So allow me first to react to the question that was raised earlier.
Okay.
The question of the civil society disrupting democratic processes in this country has long been used against, you know, the trend that we've seen organizations supporting, more especially involvement of young people in political processes in this country. I first started attending a public demonstration back in 2018. And ever since, to date, I can state here categorically that I've never been paid to attend any public protests. And so is for many other young people in this country. And now coming into the question of young people organizing themselves to take political power in this country, is that first we see that the political culture is, you know, formed along the tribal lines, whereby tribal alliances mostly form the backyard of a leader. But we are shifting that. We are shifting that culture. The political class that exists at the moment does not speak to the issues that I and so many other young people in this country resonate with. And so at no point a leader who was once in this government can position himself as a leader who speaks for the young voters in this country. And so we as young people need to undergo this moment to self-organize and know exactly how we can form our own manifesto and how we can bring out our leaders as we get closer to 2027. The problem is we are getting pressed to come out with political outfit and vehicles that that can easily be targeted. As a group, we are very complex, and we understand very well that if we emerge out with this political outfit at the moment, it's easy for the ruling political class to try and persuade our leaders to join their outfit. So we have to take that moment. We have to undergo a lot of learning processes and mistakes, but we are undergoing a shift and selecting the kind of people that we want to be, and not just selecting. We are also leaders on our own ways.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'll let you have the final words. In 30 seconds each, perhaps call to action. I'll start with you.
My call to action, number one, would be for accountability and responsibility, starting from the head up. Because if you want to bring us up from the bottom up, then we need to meet somewhere. Because the person who's at the head needs to come down and tell us, this is what we're doing, this is how we are doing it, and we tell them, we are going with you, we are not with you, or we are going to meet at a certain middle point. And that is what I call for. Number one, accountability and responsibility.
I'll let you have the final word. 30 seconds.
Thank you, thank you. I'll also buttress what my learned friend has said. And as I said when I made my opening remarks, what we need in this country, we need command responsibility if we want to see the police, you know, toe the line and act according to how the law requires them to act. So for me, I'll call upon even the judiciary, whenever cases are brought to court against these people, we want to see them coming out being brave enough and issuing those orders, and also going further. Don't issue orders. For example, just a quick example, what we saw, I think in the beginning of the year,
Yes.
when the deputy IG was summoned to court, he refused to come to court. He was held in contempt. But when he finally came to court, he was forgiven.
Yeah.
We need to see action if we want to have even the junior police women and men act according to what the law requires them to act.
All right, I think that's a really good place to end this conversation. Of course, it doesn't end here. We'll continue having more of this conversation, and I hope when we invite, you will heed and come. So, well, thank you so much. Patrick Kungu, Secretary, LSK Thika Chapter. We have also had Njanja Maina, an advocate of the High Court, Geoffrey Mboya, Gen Z human rights defender, and Elijah Kandiero Tok, Senior Human Rights Officer and Advocate at KNCHR. And that's how we wrap things up for you here on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for being part of the broadcast from the beginning to the tail end. I am Ashley Mazuri. On behalf of Jesse Rogers, Pretty Janet, and the entire crew, have a good night.